AITA for defending my daughter's name changes, cutting my daughter off from her new friends, or letting my daughter call her aunt by the wrong name? I'm guessing I set something off when I talked to Brittany's parents, again, oops, because Brittany's on there sympathizing with Maggie and talking shit about Emily because it's all Emily's fault Maggie can't hang out with them this weekend, and, fuck. These messages are awful. Maggie's apparently been glued to Jenna all day via her laptop trying to just deal with all the horribleness. And Maggie says nothing else from before was ever this bad. My wife asked her what she wanted to do now, to which Mags channeled her inner pumpkin spice and told us she can't even with Brittany right now. Which I clarified meant she knows the friendship is over, but she doesn't have any clue how to do it. She doesn't want to come out to her, naturally, but she feels like she's going to get nothing but questions. Since there's no school tomorrow, we're going to sit down with her and brainstorm. I asked her what she would do about Emily, because I still think that because she was a part of this, she has some level of responsibility to help make things right. I was thinking an apology, which she agreed to. But then Maggie shows me screenshots of all the messages Brittany sent about Emily that morning, along with some of the ones from before the drama, which she'd been furiously finding and saving while she ate her lunch, and she says she wants to take them to the VP at the school. And I'm like, fucking A. So, that's where we are now. I'm proud as hell of Maggie, and also scared as hell of what she's going to have to deal with when all the shit hits the fan. I don't know what the school will or can do with Maggie's screenshots, I guess we'll have to see. Wifey and I are going to sit in on a call to Jenna tonight, with Maggie, because we both agreed with what several of you said, she deserves credit for being absolutely top-notch here. And Maggie's therapist had a cancellation tomorrow, praise Jeebus, so there's that too. I want to thank everyone again for everything. There will be more that happens, this ain't done, but for now I'm done updating. I'm gonna go cuddle with my daughter and watch a terrible movie. Edit, Jesus Murphy. This all got far more attention than any of us were prepared for, Maggie included, but the outpouring of support has been phenomenal. I have decided I'm not, for the most part, going to try to respond to the massive orchard of comments here. But I do want all of you to know I'm reading every single one, sharing the advice and perspectives with Maggie and her mom, and feeling downright humbled. When I have more time I'll come back and try to address some recurring themes in the comments, but for now, thank you all, love you all. Some folks pointed out that there was enough detail in my post, and it was getting enough attention, that it could be tracked down by someone at the school, and after the first comment along those lines I swore at myself and then sat Maggie and her mother down about it. Long story short, Maggie told me to leave it up because 1, taking it down at that stage probably wouldn't make a difference, 2, the overwhelming support was helping her, and her mother and I, get through it, and 3, she pretty much said if people find out, they find out. As far as we know, it didn't happen. Not ruling it out, but if someone at the school saw, it never got back to Maggie. Therapy. Maggie's therapist has been wonderful. When this all hit the fan, we had her on once-a-week appointments for a while, but we've been able to ease back and Maggie's in a better spot. Maggie being stealth. I won't say she decided to come out, as it were, but she realized she'd drifted pretty far from her original outlook when she went to this school, which was I won't advertise it, but if people find out, it's no big deal. We, and her therapist, did a lot of unpacking about that, and thank fuck for her therapist, because I have felt so out of my depth here, but long story short, she's come back around to that since she distanced herself from Brittany and that group. Brittany. There were a few comments pointing out that Maggie didn't owe Brittany anything, and that block delete would be totally okay in a scenario like this. Good advice. Maggie chose not to do it that way, partly, I think, because she felt guilty for not speaking up sooner about the awful stuff Brittany said, and partly because she wanted Brittany to know exactly why they couldn't have a friendship anymore. More proof, if any was needed, that she's a lot more courageous than I am. I don't think it needs to be said that Brittany didn't take it well, but Maggie did come away from it with one consolation prize, another girl in the group who had been similarly secretly uncomfortable with Brittany. We can call her, I don't know, Eva. I wasn't thrilled about it at first, but when Brittany and the remaining girls in that group were slinging mud after the fact, it meant neither of them had to deal with it solo. Thankfully, it stopped before things got too dramatic. Emily. There was a lot of hopeful fiction in the comments on the last post about Maggie and Emily becoming a tag team trans girl duo and fighting evil, and I'm sorry to disappoint those of you who got your hopes up, but while Emily did accept Maggie's apology, they float in different circles and Emily, quite fairly, I think, isn't really looking for a friendship with my daughter. However, about the screenshots. After a bit of thought, Maggie decided to take the advice of several commenters and talk to Emily before going to the VP. Emily, for her own reasons, decided she didn't want that. Didn't even want a copy. Maggie's keeping them safe in case they're needed down the road. Jenna. Still a superhero. She took a little time and space after things settled down and she was sure Maggie had the support she needed. Maggie had a tough time with that, but her therapist, again, amazing person, helped her understand why Jenna might have needed it. Didn't last long, and now they're back to talking pretty much every day. So that's where things are now. Haven't heard anything about Brittany in a couple of months now, so I'm cautiously optimistic that the whole business is behind us, but time will tell, I guess. To those who accused this of being a creative writing exercise, that's fine. I'm not bothered about whether the whole internet believes it's real. Otherwise, I just hope other parents of trans kids manage to get something positive out of all this. That's all I've got. Much love from all three of us, and big thanks to everyone for helping us through things. Hi AITB. I'm posting at the request of my daughter, Maggie. Originally we went to AITA, but apparently we're too frequent flyers for that sub and it was removed. Got some responses that were very validating, but I honestly wouldn't mind having a broader sample. Context: she recently turned 17, and she is trans. Since this post involves her birth name, we're going to pretend it's George. When she came out, my wife's family was wonderfully supportive despite knowing next to nothing about gender journeys. My own family was tolerant. Not ideal, but not overly bad, just trying hard to be comfortable. My sister, her aunt, let's call her Bessie, was the biggest hurdle. She and Maggie were very, very close before her transition, probably because Bessie is single without kids. She took the change weirdly personally, and we've been low contact since. Maggie took this hard, she really missed her Aunt Bess, but over time came to accept, and mourn, the loss. Therapy helped. So this brings us to her birthday. My mother's health isn't what it used to be, and Maggie is her only grandchild, so she wanted to have a family birthday dinner for her, with all of us. Grand. We checked with Maggie, no pressure, OBV, and she said yes. The day arrives, we go to my mom's. My wife couldn't make it due to a work emergency, so it was just me and Mags. We weren't 10 seconds in the door when we heard Bess go, "Is that my Georgie?" from the other room. I almost turned and walked out right then, but Maggie stopped me and told me to let her handle it. I didn't like it, but I said okay. So when Bessie comes around the corner, Maggie gives her a big hug and goes, "It's so good to see you, Uncle Brian." My sister had a face like a cat's ass, and I was trying really hard not to laugh, but my dad, bless him, was like, "Well, you walked into that one, Bess," and she walked it back with a half-assed apology and excuses. Dinner went awkwardly, although I loved every damn second of it. Bess mostly used the right name, but whenever she didn't, Maggie would politely call her Uncle Brian again. In the next few days I heard from both my mother and Bess in the form of voicemail saying Maggie was rude and took the whole thing too far to intentionally embarrass her aunt. My wife thought it was well deserved, but thinks that maybe two wrongs don't make a right and we should have just left it. It came up again yesterday, so Maggie said we should ask him. Will we ask her at dinner? Edit. Okay, this post omitted some details because of the AITA character limit, and there have been recurring questions, so I'm going to address some here. 1. Maggie's transition began 4 years ago, which is when she stopped going by George. Bessie has had a very long time to practice and adjust, and she doesn't want to. 2. We went low contact about half a year after Maggie came out to us. She and Aunt Bess had spent the day together, and Bess all but refused to use the right name or pronouns, and Maggie came home a mess. Would have been no contact for a while, but Maggie didn't know that. And for those might have looked at my post history, in fairness, the name hasn't always been Maggie. There were a good 2 years of trying on names before she landed on that one. But Bess has never used any name but George or Georgie, and that's the issue. 3. Bessie is, bizarrely, not ideologically transphobic, just very, very attached to the past. Still transphobic, I know, but just for context. She is stubbornly attached to the hope that Maggie will grow out of this phase. I hate that word. It isn't just Maggie. This is a problem in every area of her life. She's a deeply unhappy, lonely person who floats between complaints about the life she leads and paralyzing nostalgia for yesterday. My relationship with her was complicated before Maggie was born, although she absolutely adored Maggie pre-transition and spoiled the heck out of her. I wish she'd spent these 4 years learning to love her niece as much as she loved her nephew. 4. About Mom, her behavior this round was transphobic, but that is out of character for her. She was the first to figure things out when Maggie first came out to the family, and she whipped my dad into shape on names and pronouns pretty quick for a woman who had no prior exposure. Her actions here are more about my sister than anything else. As I said, Mom's health is failing and she's terrified that after she and Dad are gone, Bess won't have any family left. She knows Bess was wrong, heck, I think she even knows she herself was wrong, but she's faced with her own mortality, petrified for her daughter, and picking a deeply misguided way to go about things. It's complicated. Summary of comments section. Many users were questioning whether Bessie should have been given more grace, which OOP responded to by adding context and editing the original post to include it. Users also suggested it was not healthy for Maggie to have contact with Bessie at all, or that Maggie might be putting up a front, and OOP was asked about having a proper come-to-Jesus talk with Bessie given their mother's failing health. Hey folks. Maggie and I were waxing nostalgic yesterday and we remembered this account, and she thought it would be nice to give an update on things. To sum up my last post, at a 17th birthday dinner for Maggie, my trans daughter, my sister, Aunt Bess, 49F, routinely dead-named her, and Maggie responded by politely calling her Uncle Brian whenever she did. There was wailing and gnashing of teeth, but the Reddit consensus was that my daughter's a badass. I know it's been a bit of a goofy long time and it was a pretty small post, but there's been a lot. Some good, some significantly shitty. Maggie put me up to this, so blame her. So let's start with the shitty. My mother passed away late last year. We knew it was coming, but shockingly, that knowledge didn't help much. Don't want to get into the details because this update really isn't about that, but it's relevant. I will say that nothing really prepares you to lose a parent, and my wife is a superhero because without her and Maggie I probably would have just crawled in a hole and never come back out. On the heels of my mom's passing, Aunt Bess had a mild heart attack. She's doing fine now. Recovery was a bitch. I had to get more involved than I honestly wanted because I wasn't about to let Dad take the bull on by himself. My wife pitched in too, again, superhero. And then Maggie is, Jesus H. Christ, 18 now and graduating high school. Something else nothing prepares you for. All that context is to make this point. Bessie finally figured out that Maggie is Maggie for good, and she's actually started making an effort. I think the combination of Mom's death, her own scare, and the fact that Maggie will be going off to university in another city next year kind of has a thinking that if she didn't fix things now, she might never get the chance. I don't know. It's not perfect. And frankly, Bessie has gotten even more insufferable in some ways. But back around Maggie's birthday she sat down with her and gave her an honest-to-God apology. I got it secondhand from Maggie because I wasn't there, but my favourite part of the whole thing is a direct quote from Bess that Maggie gave me word for word. You know, I wanted a niece more than a nephew anyway when you were young, so maybe this trans thing was all my fault from the start. So yeah, the world still revolves around Bessie in her head, but she hasn't used Maggie's dead name once around her since then, and only slipped on pronouns a few times, so I'm starting to believe this is a good thing. And of course Maggie's overjoyed to have her Aunt Bess back, especially after losing her grandma. So things are sad, but nice. It's weird. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Maggie said I should tell you that you people are cool, so there you go. Seal of approval.